I never thought I'd be the kind of guy who needed a backup bride. Honestly, I didn't even believe in the idea. It sounded like something out of a bad romantic comedy, a joke people make when they're young and afraid of being alone. But then again, I never expected to be standing in my best friend's bedroom at 26, holding a tuxedo I wasn't sure I wanted to wear, listening to her say the words that would change everything. "If you get cold feet," Olivia said, "I'll step in. I'll marry you myself." She said it with a laugh, like it was all a game, but there was something in her eyes, something just a little too still. Olivia had always been that way, light-hearted on the outside, but deep water underneath. We'd been best friends since freshman year of high school. She was a loud, chaotic force that pulled me out of my shell. I was a quiet, overthinking kid who secretly wrote poetry and never let anyone read it. Somehow we just worked. People always assumed we were dating. Sometimes we didn't correct them. It was easier than explaining that our bond was something else, something more complicated, something not easily named. I remember the first time we made the pact. We were 17, sitting on the roof of her parents' house after a stupid fight with her ex. She had mascara smeared under her eyes and a bottle of grape soda clutched in her hand. "If we're both still single by 30, she said, "let's just marry each other and adopt a golden retriever." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was a kind of promise that felt safe to make when you didn't think you'd need to keep it. Now here we were, grown up, sort of, me engaged to a woman I barely understood anymore. Olivia still single, by choice, she always claimed, but she never really let anyone in since college. And when I asked her why, she just shrugged and said, "Not everyone's built for soft things." My fiancée, Natalie, was perfect on paper. Smart, driven, beautiful in a calculated, curated kind of way. We met through mutual friends at a New Year's party 2 years ago. Things move fast. She liked plans, timelines. She set deadlines for everything, including us. 6 months in, she'd already mapped out where we'd live, when we get married, how many kids we'd have. At first, I thought I liked that. The structure, the certainty. But as the wedding approached, I started to feel like a passenger in my own life. And Olivia saw it. She always did. That night, in her room, I sat on the edge of her bed, staring down at the tux in my lap, like it had personally betrayed me. "Do you think I'm making a mistake?" I asked. She didn't answer right away, just walked over and sat beside me. "I think," she said slowly, "that the person you're supposed to be with shouldn't feel like a deadline." I looked at her. She was in an old sweatshirt and leggings, hair piled messily on her head, no makeup. She looked like home. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we actually went through with that roof pact?" I asked. She smiled, soft and a little sad. Every now and then, I wanted to ask more, push past the surface, but something held me back. Maybe fear, maybe timing, maybe just the fact that I was 24 hours away from marrying someone else. Instead, I stood, tuck still in hand, and forced a grin. "Well, let's hope I don't get cold feet. But thanks for offering to be my backup bride. That's comforting." She threw a pillow at me. "Shut up and go rehearse your vows, idiot." But even as I left her room, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted, like we'd crossed a line we didn't mean to draw. The next day was chaos. Hair, makeup, cufflinks, florists who forgot half the flowers, my mom crying before anyone had even walked down the aisle, Natalie pacing in a side room, checking her lipstick in the mirror every 5 seconds. I stood there in the groom suite, people buzzing around me, and I felt like I was underwater. Then Olivia walked in. She wasn't supposed to be there. She said she'd sit in the 3rd row, keep her head down, not cause a scene. But when she saw me, something must have changed. Maybe she saw the panic on my face. Or maybe she just knew. She walked straight over, took my hand, and said, "Come with me." I didn't ask where. We slipped out a side door and ended up behind the building near a row of trees. She turned to me and said, "Don't say yes if it doesn't feel like love." My throat went dry. "It's too late," I whispered. "No, it's not. She'll hate me. My parents will kill me." And you'll wake up every morning wondering what it would have been like if you'd walked away instead of walking down that aisle. I stared at her. She wasn't begging. She wasn't even asking. She was just telling the truth, like she always did. And maybe that's why I kissed her. It wasn't planned. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't even particularly smooth. I just leaned in, and she didn't pull away. Her lips were soft, familiar, like something I had forgotten I needed. When we broke apart, she looked stunned. "So," she said breathlessly, "is that a no to Natalie, or are we just adding to your list of sins before you go in there?" I laughed, then cried, then laughed again. And for the first time in months, I felt like myself. But I still walked back inside. I still stood at the altar. I still looked into Natalie's eyes as she smiled that practiced, perfect smile. And then I said, "I can't do this." Gasps echoed around the room. My mother covered her mouth. Natalie's face crumpled into something between disbelief and rage. "I'm sorry," I said. "I just can't." I turned and walked out, straight down the aisle, past shocked guests and furious whispers. And standing at the back, by the door, was Olivia. She didn't smile. She didn't say, "I told you so." She just took my hand. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't the end. This was where everything began. I don't know what I expected after walking out of my own wedding, but I know I didn't expect silence. Not the thick, echoing kind that follows you around like fog. My phone didn't ring for hours. Not from Natalie. Not from my mom. Not from anyone in that chapel who watched me abandon tradition, expectations, and a carefully laid plan of a life I was never sure I chose. Olivia drove us back to her apartment. She didn't ask where I wanted to go, and I didn't offer another option. When we walked inside, I sat on the edge of her couch, still wearing the damn tux, and stared at my hands like they might explain what I'd just done. She brought me a glass of water, then sat cross-legged on the floor in front of me, elbows on her knees, waiting. "You know," I said after a minute, "I thought I'd feel relieved." "You don't?" she asked gently. "I feel like I jumped out of a plane, and I'm still waiting to see if the parachute opens." Olivia didn't try to comfort me with cliches or false promises. She just nodded. "I get that." I looked at her then. Really looked at her. Her hair was still pinned up from the ceremony, her lipstick slightly faded from the kiss. And I remembered, I remembered the way it felt to kiss her, the way it felt like opening a door I'd been afraid to admit existed. "You were right," I said finally, "about all of it." She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "That doesn't make this any easier." "No, but it makes it real." We didn't talk much that night. We watched a movie neither of us really paid attention to. She changed into sweatpants and let me borrow one of her old t-shirts. I crashed on the couch, not because I had to, but because it felt like I needed to, like I needed the space to just exist without expectation. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to find her sitting in the kitchen, scrolling her phone, the light from the screen casting soft shadows across her face. She didn't look up when she said, "Natalie texted me." I sat up. What did she say? That I ruined her life. That I planned this. That I've been in love with you since forever. I swallowed hard. "Did you tell her she's wrong?" She looked at me then, eyes wide and unreadable. "No." I stood slowly and crossed the room. "Olivia, I didn't tell her she's wrong," she repeated, voice low, "because I don't know if she is." The silence between us thickened. My heart thudded. I reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. "You never said anything." "Neither did you." I think I was scared. She laughed softly, bitterly. "Of what? Me?" "No. Of knowing. Of not being able to undo it once I did." We stood there, her fingers in mine, the weight of what we didn't say pressing down like a thundercloud. "I'm not expecting anything," she said finally. "I just needed you to know." "I do," I said. "I know now." She nodded, letting her hand slip out of mine. "You should get some sleep." But I didn't sleep. Not really. I lay on that couch, staring at the ceiling, playing back every moment we'd ever had, every almost, every laugh that lingered too long, every look I ignored. I'd spent so much of my life organizing my feelings into neat boxes: friendship, romance, obligation. But what Olivia and I had never fit into a box. It spilled over. It challenged me. It scared me because it felt like something that could actually last. The next morning, the phone call started. My mom, furious, embarrassed, demanding explanations I couldn't give. My brother, surprisingly chill. Honestly, dude, we all saw it coming. You didn't look happy. And finally, Natalie. I didn't answer, but she left a voicemail. I don't care if you found someone else. I care that you didn't tell me. You let me walk towards something you knew you'd never go through with. That's the part I'll never forgive. I listened to it twice, then deleted it. Later that day, Olivia came out of her room in jeans and a tank top, hair down, coffee in hand. "So what now?" she asked. I shrugged. "I don't know. You going back to your place?" "Feels weird now." She nodded. "You can stay here, as long as you need." I wanted to thank her, but something about the way she said it, casual, like she wasn't offering me her heart in the subtext, made it hard to speak. Instead, I said, "We should talk. About us." She sat down, her eyes cautious. "Okay, I've spent years thinking I knew what I wanted, but maybe I was just trying to want what I thought I should." She stayed quiet. "I'm not saying this because you're the backup bride." I added, "I'm saying it because when I kissed you, it didn't feel like the first time. It felt like coming home." Her breath caught. "Are you sure this isn't just post-wedding confusion? Guilt? Rebound? I don't know. I don't know anything except that being with you, talking to you, feels more real than anything I've had in years." She looked at me for a long moment, then stood. "I need time," she said. "Okay, this isn't a movie, and I'm not the reward for doing the right thing. I know that." She moved closer, stopped just in front of me. "Then prove it. Show me you're not just reacting to the fallout. Show me you want me because it's me, not because I was there when everything else collapsed." And I understood, because for once, she wasn't pulling away to protect herself. She was standing her ground, asking me to meet her there. 3 days passed. Olivia didn't ask me to leave, and I didn't press her for clarity. We existed in this strange in-between space, sharing meals, making idle conversation, pretending like everything wasn't unraveling and reforming all at once. But it hung in the air between us. The kiss, the confession, the wedding that didn't happen. I spent a lot of time walking around the city. It was something to do, something that made me feel like I was moving even when I wasn't going anywhere. I'd come back in the evenings and find her on the couch, knees tucked up under her, some documentary playing on low volume. It wasn't awkward. It was quieter than it had ever been between us, but not in a bad way. It was a quiet of two people holding their breath. On the fourth night, I came back to find her gone. There was a note on the counter. Just one line. Needed space. Be back later. I stood there for a while, staring at those words like they might rearrange themselves into something less hollow. I didn't blame her. She deserved the space. She'd spent years being the one who watched from the sidelines while I fumbled through relationships that never fit. She'd never tried to take up space she didn't think she had a right to. And now that she might finally have a claim, she didn't know how to hold it. I went into her room, not to snoop, just to feel closer to her. I sat on her bed and looked around, the same room I'd sat in with a tux in my lap just days ago, convinced I was about to marry the wrong person. The closet door was ajar, her vision board still taped above her desk. She'd always been someone who made goals, even if she never followed through on all of them. I smiled at the corner where she still kept the plan I gave her 5 birthdays ago. Somehow it was still alive. I leaned back against her pillows and closed my eyes. I didn't mean to fall asleep. When I woke up, it was because the door creaked open. Olivia stood there, her face unreadable. "Sorry," I mumbled. "I didn't mean to crash in here." "It's fine," she said softly, stepping inside. "I just wasn't expecting to find you." I sat up. "Where'd you go?" She hesitated, then shrugged, drove around, thought about stuff. "What kind of stuff?" She came over and sat at the edge of the bed, not quite facing me. You, me, that kiss. I nodded. Same. For a while, the only sound was the hum of the street outside. Then she said, I used to imagine what it would be like if you ever looked at me the way I looked at you. I turned toward her. I'm looking at you now. I said, I know, she whispered. That's what makes it scary. Why? Because I don't know if it's real, or if I'm just convenient, familiar. You're not convenient, Liv. You're everything I wasn't brave enough to admit I wanted. She turned to me then, eyes glossy. You left her for you, not for me. That's important. And it's good, but it means I don't know what this is yet. I don't either, I admitted, but I know I want to find out. She smiled, sad and small. That's a start. I reached for her hand. This time, she didn't pull away. I'm not going to run, I said. Then don't. She lay down beside me, both of us staring at the ceiling, our fingers interlaced. We didn't say anything else that night. The next morning, I made coffee. She wandered into the kitchen in her pajamas, hair wild, rubbing her eyes. You sleep? She asked. Some. She grabbed a mug, filled it, leaned against the counter. My mom called, she said after a moment. I looked up. Yeah. She saw the wedding video. There was a video? She snorted. People filmed everything. One of her co-workers sent it to her. She said she's never seen you look so miserable in your life. I winced. Not exactly the legacy I was hoping for. She also said she always liked me better than Natalie. I laughed. Your mom's always been Team Olivia. She's not the only one, she said, quieter. I set my mug down. Liv. She looked up. You're not a backup. She blinked, lips pressing into a line. I know. Sometimes it feels like I spent so long waiting in the wings that I don't know how to take center stage. You've always been a main character in my life. I was just too blind to see it. She smiled finally. Okay, that was cheesy. I grinned. Yeah, but you liked it. We both laughed. And just like that, something shifted. The heaviness in the room lifted a little. Over the next few days, we talked more. Really talked. About old memories, past relationships, things we'd never said because we didn't know how. I told her about the poetry I still wrote in secret. She told me about the guy she almost dated in college who reminded her too much of me. It was like getting to know each other all over again, with fewer walls, more honesty. But it wasn't perfect. One night, while watching a movie, I reached for her hand and she pulled away. I'm not ready for that yet, she said. Okay, I said, thank you for telling me. And I meant it, because love, when it's real, waits. The next morning, she handed me a coffee and said, I think I'm scared that if we try and it fails, I lose you. Completely. I nodded. Me too. But I also think, she continued, that maybe we owe it to ourselves to find out what this really is. My heart thudded. So are you saying we try? I'm saying we take it slow. No labels. No pressure. Just us, seeing where it goes. I can do that, I said. She smiled. Good. Because I already told my mom we might be a thing. You what? She laughed. Relax. She's thrilled. She said she knew it before we did. I rolled my eyes, grinning. Moms always know. She stepped closer. This doesn't mean we're dating, she teased. This means we're exploring. I teased back. We stood there, inches apart, energy buzzing between us. And for the first time since the wedding, I didn't feel lost. I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. With her, in the middle of something new, something honest, something real. Taking it slow sounded easy when we said it. In theory, it was perfect. No pressure, no labels, just two best friends seeing where the truth might lead. But in practice, taking it slow with someone who already knew the shape of your laughter, the rhythm of your breathing, and the way you stirred your coffee before taking a sip, felt like pretending not to know your own name. The following week passed in strange rhythms. I cooked us dinner a few nights. She introduced me to a new podcast she was obsessed with. We watched an entire mini-series on a lazy Saturday without moving off the couch. But every time our hands brushed or we laughed too hard and our eyes lingered too long, something buzzed under the surface like an unspoken question neither of us knew how to answer. One night, we sat on her fire escape with paper cups of wine, the city humming beneath us. She was wearing my hoodie because she said it smelled like home. I didn't say anything about that, but I noticed the way her fingers kept tightening around the fabric, like it was some kind of lifeline. I told Julia, she said after a long stretch of silence. Julia from work? Yeah. She asked why I'd been smiling at emails and randomly humming during the day. I raised an eyebrow. You hum? I didn't know I did either, she said, bumping my shoulder. Anyway, I told her about us. Sort of. What did she say? She said we were everyone's favorite rom-com waiting to happen, then made me promise I wouldn't let you screw it up. I laughed. Sounds about right. She glanced at me sideways. You didn't tell anyone, did you? I hesitated. No, I wanted to, but I think I'm afraid it'll jinx it. She nodded like she understood. Yeah, me too. And that's how it was. Two people tiptoeing around something that already felt like more than friendship, but didn't quite dare name it love. Until the night Natalie showed up. It was a Sunday afternoon. Olivia was out grabbing groceries. I was still in sweatpants, flipping channels, when the knock came. It was sharp, determined. I opened the door without checking the peephole, and there she was, Natalie, hair perfect, eyes sharp, holding a manila envelope, like it held the weight of the world. Can we talk? She asked. I stepped aside, unsure if I should say yes. She walked in like she still owned the air I breathed. I thought you were in Chicago, I said quietly. I was, until your mom called and said you were playing house with Olivia. I clenched my jaw. That's not what's happening. No, she said, eyebrows raised. You left me at the altar and ran straight into her arms. What would you call it? I would call it finally being honest. She dropped the envelope on the table. That's your half of the deposits. Venue, catering, photography. I thought you want to settle it like adults. I looked at the number written at the top. It was a punch to the gut. I'll pay you back, I said. I know you will, she replied, already halfway to the door. Because if nothing else, you've always hated feeling like the bad guy. Before I could respond, the door opened again, and Olivia walked in. She stopped short, bags in hand, eyes shifting between us. Hey, she said carefully. Natalie turned, perfectly poised. Hi, Liv. I was just dropping off what your boyfriend owed me. Olivia said nothing, just placed the groceries on the counter. I should go, Natalie added, but I hope you two enjoy your storybook ending. She left without another word. I sat down heavily, the envelope still on the table. I'm sorry, I said. Olivia started unpacking the groceries. You don't have to apologize. She hates me. She's allowed to. I stood and walked over. Are you mad? She didn't look at me. No. Then what? She paused, holding a carton of milk in one hand. I just didn't expect to see her in our doorway. It's not our doorway. It's yours. You know what I mean. I moved closer. Does it bother you that she showed up? No, she said quietly. What bothers me is how easily she made me feel like the side character again. I took the milk from her hands and set it down. Liv, I know it's not fair, she said. I know you didn't invite her. I know you've been trying. But it's hard to forget how many times I had to watch you choose someone else. You're not someone else, I said. You're the only one I've ever... I stopped myself. She looked up. The only one you've ever what? I don't know. I admitted. But when she was here, I didn't want her back. I wanted you in the room. Her eyes softened. Then don't just say that, she whispered. Show me. That night, we didn't kiss. We didn't touch. We just lay on opposite sides of the couch, a few inches of space between us that felt like miles. But something had shifted again, deeper this time, heavier. The next day, I transferred half the cost of the wedding to Natalie's account. It cleaned out my savings, but I didn't regret it. It felt like cutting the last thread to a life that wasn't mine anymore. Olivia came home with Chinese takeout and a new playlist she said I had to hear. We ate on the floor like college kids. Halfway through a song, she asked, "Would you have kissed me that night if I hadn't said something first?" "No," I said, but not because I didn't want to. "Then why?" "Because I didn't think I deserved to." She stared at me for a long second, and then she leaned in and kissed me. It was different from the first time. Softer, sadder, more certain. When she pulled back, she said, "That's for being honest." And I knew then we were no longer taking it slow. We were just taking it real. We didn't talk about the kiss. Not the next day. Not the day after that. It hung there, silent but present, like a painting on the wall you weren't ready to take down or hang properly. We still made coffee together. Still shared space like nothing had changed, even though everything had. But now, every brush of her hand, every glance that lasted half a second too long, it meant something, and we both felt it. I kept thinking about what she said that night. Show me. And I didn't know what that looked like yet. All I knew was I wanted to try. Not to win her over. Not to prove a point. But to show her she wasn't a second option. She never had been. I just hadn't realized that the person I trusted most, the one I always called first, the one I missed even when she was just in another room, was also the person I wanted to build a life with. It hit me hardest when I saw her laugh. It was late. She was watching some absurd reality dating show, mocking it under her breath while spooning peanut butter straight from the jar. And then she cracked up genuinely, uncontrollably, and I realized I'd never laughed like that with Natalie. Not once. I want to keep that laugh. Every version of it. The dry sarcasm. The uncontrollable snort. The breathless, head thrown back kind. I wanted to be the reason she did that for the rest of her life. And that terrified me, because it meant I had something to lose now. She sensed it too. I could tell in the way she hesitated around me. She'd open her mouth to say something, then change her mind. She'd reach out like she wanted to touch me, then pull back. It was like we were dancing at the edge of something neither of us knew how to name. Then came the dinner invitation. Her sister Chloe was in town for a few days. Married, 2 kids, annoyingly perceptive. She'd always liked me, in that way older siblings do when they think their little sister's best friend is harmless and adorably clueless. "She wants to have dinner," Olivia said one morning. "Wants to see you." I raised an eyebrow. "Me? You're basically extended family." "But she doesn't know about us." "There is no us," Olivia said quickly, too quickly. "I mean, not officially. Do you want there to be?" She hesitated. "I want to figure this out without an audience." I nodded, even though it stung. That evening, we met Chloe at a quiet Italian place downtown. She hugged me like no time had passed and immediately launched into updates about her kids' piano recitals and how her husband kept breaking the garbage disposal. Halfway through dinner, she looked between the two of us and said, "So, when's the wedding?" I choked on my water. Olivia blinked. "What?" "You too. Come on. You've been dancing around each other for a decade. I assumed with the Natalie thing done, you'd finally—" "There's nothing official," Olivia said, cutting her off. Chloe tilted her head. "Really? We're figuring things out," I offered carefully. Chloe didn't say anything for a moment. Then she leaned back, folded her arms, and said, "Liv, you deserve someone who chooses you loudly. No figuring out. No maybe." Olivia looked down at her plate. I hated how that landed. Later, walking home, Olivia was quiet. "Are you mad?" I asked. "No." "Then what?" She sighed. "She's not wrong." I stopped walking. "What does that mean?" "It means," she said, turning to face me, "that I'm scared I'm going to fall completely and you'll still be halfway back in your old life." "I'm not." "Not yet," she said gently. "But you still hesitate. I don't want to ruin this." "And that's the problem," she said. "You're treating this like something fragile, like something you're afraid to drop. But love isn't glass. It's fire. And if we're not willing to get burned for it, what's the point?" That night, I sat on the couch long after she'd gone to bed, thinking about everything. The wedding, Natalie, my past, the future I wanted but didn't know how to reach. She was right. I was hesitating. Still too careful. Still too worried about messing it up. But maybe that's what was keeping us stuck. The fear. The next morning, I did something reckless. I made breakfast. Waffles, her favorite. Strawberries. The expensive syrup she always joked about but never bought. When she came into the kitchen, hair messy, eyes puffy from sleep, she froze. "What's this?" she asked. "Breakfast." For you? For us." She raised an eyebrow. I handed her a note. Just 4 words, written in my messy, uneven print. "I choose you, Olivia." She stared at it, blinked once, then twice, and then she walked over and kissed me. Not the soft, tentative kind. The kind you remember. The kind you build from. When we pulled apart, she whispered, "Okay," and that was all we needed. We didn't label it, didn't post about it, didn't make declarations. We just started being. We shared more space, more stories, more silence that felt like belonging instead of waiting. One night, she reached for my hand in the middle of a movie and didn't let go until the credits rolled. Another night, I found one of my old poems folded into her notebook. She'd kept it. From years ago, we were becoming something. But nothing ever stays easy. Because just when we were finding our rhythm, life reminded us that the past doesn't vanish just because you stop looking at it. The rhythm we'd found was fragile, but beautiful. It was quiet Sunday mornings where neither of us needed to speak, just exist side by side. It was the way she started brushing her teeth at the same time as me, without even thinking. It was a fact that I had a drawer at her place now, and neither of us had said it out loud. But it was real. It was happening. We didn't need a label. Not yet, but we were something. Something that felt more like home than anything I'd ever had. And then Mason called. I hadn't heard that name in years. Mason was Olivia's college ex. The only one she ever talked about with anything close to weight in her voice. I'd met him once, years ago. The guy was charming, in that overly confident, slightly smug way that made you wonder if he practiced his smirks in the mirror. They had dated seriously until he took a job in Seattle and needed space. When Olivia told me he'd texted, her tone was unreadable. What did he say? I asked. He's in town for a conference. Said he saw my name on LinkedIn. Wants to catch up. I raised an eyebrow. And you want to? I don't know, she said, not meeting my eyes. He was a big part of my past. I think I want closure. Closure, I repeated. She looked at me then. It's not like that. But I felt the shift, the unease. I tried to be cool, tried to trust. But old insecurities are like splinters. You think they're gone, then one touch in the wrong spot and you feel the sting. Do you want me to come with you? I asked. She hesitated. I think I should go alone. I nodded slowly. Okay. But I didn't like it. She met him for coffee 2 days later. I knew because she told me, and because she came home quieter than usual. How was it? I asked. Weird, she said. He's different. Or maybe I am. Did he say why he reached out? She nodded. He said he regrets how things ended, that he thinks about me. And how do you feel? She paused. Confused. That one word undid me. I didn't say anything, just walked into the kitchen and started rinsing out mugs we didn't use. She followed me. It's not what you think. I didn't say anything. But you're upset. I faced her. I just don't understand why he matters now. Because he broke something in me once, and I never got to ask why. Don't you get that? I looked away. I do, but I don't like it. She reached for my hand, but I stepped back. For the first time since all this started, I felt that space between us grow again. Not the healthy kind. The old kind. The one filled with unspoken doubts. Later that night, she sat beside me on the bed, hair down, face bare. I need be honest. Okay. He kissed me. My throat closed. I didn't kiss him back, she added quickly. I pulled away. I told him I was seeing someone, that I was happy. But I didn't want to lie to you. I stared at the floor. Why'd you let it happen? I didn't know he was going to do it. But you didn't stop it before it happened either. Silence stretched between us. I stood up. I need air. She didn't stop me. I walked for hours. Thought about the irony of it all. I left a woman at the altar because I wasn't honest with her or with myself. And now, when I was finally trying to live truthfully, the past came clawing at the door. When I came back, the lights were off. She was on the couch, curled up under a blanket, eyes red. I didn't sleep with him, she said softly. I didn't ask. I know, but I wanted to say it. I sat on the floor beside her. Do you still love him? No, she said immediately. Then, but part of me still hurts from him, and I guess I needed to see him to realize how far I've come. I nodded. You're the one I want, she whispered. But I had to choose that, not just feel it. Do you understand? I did, even if it hurt. I'm scared, I said finally. Of what? Of us breaking before we even get the chance to be whole. She touched my cheek. Then let's not break. That night, we held each other. Not in the desperate, make it better kind of way, but in the I still choose you way. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest, and maybe that was enough. We didn't talk much the next morning. I made coffee. She sat at the kitchen table, stirring hers long after it had cooled. Every so often, I caught her watching me, not in fear, not in guilt, but with something softer, like she was trying to read the silence. Figure out where we stood now that all the dust from Mason had settled. I wasn't angry. Not really. The truth was, I understood more than I let on. I knew what it meant to carry pieces of the past like invisible bruises. To need to revisit something painful just to make sure it couldn't hurt you anymore. What hurt more than the kiss was the distance it created. That unspoken layer of uncertainty that slipped between us, even when we sat shoulder to shoulder. That day, we tried to be normal. Grocery shopping, laundry, a trip to the bookstore where she picked out a ridiculous rom-com and made me promise to read it. That night, she crawled into bed beside me without asking. She didn't say a word, just curled into my chest like she was asking for forgiveness without knowing how to say out loud. I held her. I didn't need words. But deep down, I knew something had shifted. Not broken, but changed. The next few days felt like we were rebuilding, but slower this time, more cautious. She would rest her head on my shoulder, but not reach for my hand. I would kiss her cheek, but never her lips. We moved like dancers relearning the rhythm of a song we'd once known by heart. Then came the night she found my journal. It wasn't intentional. I had left it on the coffee table while she was looking for a charger. I walked in to find her sitting cross-legged on the floor, flipping through the pages. Her face was unreadable. You wrote about me, she said. I froze. Yeah, I did. There was a long pause. I didn't mean to invade. No, I said quickly. It's okay. Really. She looked back down at the page. This one's from months ago, before everything. You wrote that you couldn't figure out why you always felt like something was missing, even when life looked perfect on paper. I nodded. I didn't know it was you back then, but I think I always did. She closed the journal gently, like it was fragile. Why didn't you ever tell me you wrote? Because writing felt like the only place I could be fully honest, and I wasn't ready to face the truth. She nodded slowly, her eyes softening. That poem, she said, the one about the girl in the yellow sweater. Yeah, that was me, wasn't it? I smiled. You were always cold in the library. She laughed quietly, the sound bittersweet. I can't believe you've been carrying all this. I wasn't carrying it, I said. I was hiding it. She stood and came over to me. You don't have to hide anymore. And just like that, something began to mend between us. The next few days felt lighter. She read my poems. I started her silly rom-com. We laughed again, real laughter that filled the room like sunlight. But still, we hadn't talked about what we were. Not officially, not out loud. One night, as we sat watching the rain from her bedroom window, she said something I didn't expect. I think I'm falling in love with you. My heart stopped. I turned to look at her. You think? She smiled, her voice quiet. I've probably been falling for years. I just didn't know I was allowed to. I reached for her hand. You are. Then I said it back. Not because I felt I had to. Not because the moment asked for it. But because every cell in my body wanted her to know. I love you, Olivia. It was the first time I'd ever said those words and truly meant them. Without fear. Without confusion. Just truth. She kissed me then, slow, sure, steady. It felt like coming home. The days after that were different in the best way. The small things felt bigger. Her head on my chest in the morning. Her humming while brushing her hair. Me making her laugh. So hard she cried. We were in it now. Really in it. But then something happened I didn't see coming. My mom called. She was polite but clipped. I saw your Instagram. I hadn't posted anything major. Just a picture of Olivia's bookshelf. With 2 mugs in a frame. One hers. One mine. It wasn't obvious, but moms know. You okay, Mom? I'm fine. Just surprised. I thought you might still try to work things out with Natalie. I paused. We're done, Mom. That chapter's closed. You always moved on too fast, she said. One mess into the next. Olivia isn't a mess. She's your best friend. I know. That's not always a good foundation for her. It is for me, I said, my voice firmer than I meant. It's the best one I've ever had. Silence stretched on the line. I just don't want you to get hurt, she finally said. I won't. Not with her. We hung up on a quiet note. Not angry. Just uncertain. I told Olivia about it later. She just nodded. People don't always understand how love changes, or how it begins. She smiled. But we do. And that's what mattered. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of the future. Because I wasn't walking toward alone. I always thought that once love was spoken aloud, once it had a name and a shape and a rhythm, everything else would fall into place. That loving someone meant the hard part was over. But it turns out, loving someone just opens the door. Walking through it, that's where the work begins. For a while, everything felt right. She'd slip her hand into mine while we walked home. I'd leave notes in her books. She'd hum while doing dishes. I'd sit on the couch and just watch her move around the apartment, amazed that someone could feel this much like home without even trying. We were good, not perfect, but real, solid. And then she got the email. I found her standing in the hallway, phone in one hand, the other over her mouth. She looked like she'd just been told a secret she didn't know how to hold. What is it? I asked. She turned the screen toward me. An email from a fellowship program. The one she'd applied to nearly a year ago and never heard back from. Prestigious. Competitive. Based in Boston. She'd been accepted. Oh my God, I said, reading it twice. Liv, this is incredible. She didn't smile. Yeah, she said softly. It is. A long pause followed. So, I said carefully, were you thinking? I don't know. She sat down on the edge of the couch. The phone still in her hand, like it might disappear if she blinked too hard. I didn't think I'd get it, she admitted. It was a long shot. And now it's real. It's an amazing opportunity. I know. I waited. Is it what you want? She looked at me. I don't know what I want. A few months ago, this would have been an easy yes. But now was different. Now was us. She didn't need to say it. I could feel it in the air between us. That night, neither of us brought up again. We danced around the topic, like it had teeth. We cooked dinner, watched half a movie, pretended we weren't both staring down the barrel of a choice that would change everything. She didn't sleep much. I knew because I didn't either. The next morning, she was quiet. I offered to make her tea. She just nodded and went to shower. The air between us felt thin, brittle, like one wrong word might make it crack. Finally, over breakfast, she spoke. I don't want to leave. My heart thudded. But I also don't want to look back and wonder if I gave up something that could have changed my life. I get that, I said gently. What if I go and it ruins us? What if you stay and resent me for it? She looked up, her eyes glassy. "What do we do?" she whispered. I took a breath. "We figure it out." Her lip trembled. "I don't want to lose you." "Then don't," I said. "Don't lose me. We can try. We can make it work. Long distance, if that's what it takes." She looked at me, really looked like she was trying to memorize my face. "Would you visit?" "I'd visit so much, Boston would think I moved in." She laughed, but it broke at the edges. "And what about you?" she asked. "You've just started rebuilding your life here. Wouldn't that be unfair?" "There's nothing fair about love," I said. "There's only choice. And I'd choose you no matter the distance." She nodded slowly, tears starting to fall. "I don't want to say goodbye," she said. "Then don't," I whispered. "Just say, 'I'll see you soon.'" She came into my arms and stayed there for a long time. We didn't have the answers, but we had each other. And maybe that was enough. The weeks that followed were strange, bitter and sweet, tangled up in every goodbye we didn't want to say. She packed in slow stages. I helped, even when it felt like folding my heart into every suitcase. We marked our last everything. Our last movie night on the couch. Our last lazy Sunday breakfast. Our last walk past a bookstore where she made me promise to read that dumb rom-com. On her last night, she held my hand tighter than usual. "I'm scared," she said. "Me too. But I'm also excited. And that feels wrong." "It's not," I said. "It just means this matters." We lay in bed, wrapped in silence. My arm around her, her breath warm against my chest. "I love you," she said. "I love you more." The next morning came too fast. At the airport, we didn't make a scene. We weren't dramatic people, but our goodbye was quiet devastation, the kind that sits in your throat and doesn't move. "I'll call you tonight," she promised. I nodded, even though my eyes stung. "I'll be waiting." She kissed me like it was a promise, and then she was gone. I stood there, watching the escalator swallow her up, feeling like I just handed over the most important part of my life to fate and timing and distance. I drove home in silence. The apartment was too quiet. Her mug still sat on the counter. Her blanket still smelled like her shampoo. I sat on the couch and stared at the space where she used to sit. And then I did the only thing I could. I opened my journal, and I wrote, "This isn't the end. This is just a stretch of road between two cities, between two hearts choosing each other, even when the miles try to get in the way. She is there. I am here. But we are still us." It had been 23 days. I knew because I counted. Not because I was obsessed, but because every morning felt a little quieter without her voice. We talked every night. FaceTime, voice notes, the occasional sleepy "I miss you" at 3 a.m. But nothing replaced presence. Nothing replaced the smell of her hoodie still hanging off the kitchen chair. The sound of her bare feet against the hardwood. The way she would reach for me in her sleep, like even her subconscious couldn't let go. I tried to keep myself busy. Work, writing, rearranging furniture. I even started running again, which was a clear sign of desperation. But no matter what I did, the apartment felt wrong, like a sentence missing a word. Then, on a Friday evening, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened the door, still in sweatpants, and nearly forgot how to breathe. She stood there, suitcase beside her, her smile already breaking into a laugh at the look on my face. "Surprise," she whispered. I blinked. "What? How?" "Early flight. Change plans. Couldn't go another weekend without seeing you." And then I pulled her in. We didn't even make it past the hallway before we were wrapped up in each other. Kisses that said everything we hadn't been able to over Wi-Fi. Hands memorizing again what distance tried to make us forget. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't about urgency. It was about belonging. Later, as we lay tangled on the couch, her head on my chest, she said, "I was scared you wouldn't be here. I'm always here. I just missed you so much it hurt." I kissed the top of her head. "Same." We spent the weekend like we were reclaiming time. Brunch at the diner where she used to order too many pancakes. A walk through the park where she once made me promise I'd try yoga. That night, We cooked dinner together. Badly. Pasta that stuck together. Wine that spilled. Laughter that echoed. In the middle of all that, she looked at me, eyes soft, and said, "I didn't realize how much I needed this." "You mean us?" "I mean this feeling of being known, being safe. You always have that with me." She nodded. "I know, but being away made it clearer." Sunday came too quickly. We sat on the edge of bed, her suitcase packed again, the moment heavy. "I hate this part," she whispered. "So do I. But I also feel stronger, like we're building something worth holding on to." I touched her hand. "We are." Then she said something that caught me off guard. "My fellowship ends in 9 months." I looked at her, unsure where she was going. "And if things stay this good, if we still feel like this, I think I want to come back. For good." I didn't speak for a moment. "Are you sure?" "I'm not promising anything yet. I just know that this," she gestured between us, "feels like the beginning of something I don't want to live without." I leaned forward and kissed her, slowly. "Then I'll wait," I said. 9 months, 9 years, whatever it takes." Her eyes filled with tears, and she held me like she believed it too. That night, as she flew back to Boston, I sat on the same couch, same spot, but it felt different, because now there was hope, not just love. And that hope changed everything. Something shifted after she left that weekend. The kind of shift you don't see at first, but feel in the small things. Her texts came faster. Our calls got longer. She started sending me pictures of the city, bookstores she found, little cafes she knew I'd love. It wasn't just long distance anymore. It was shared space across a map. A kind of closeness only people who survived being apart could understand. We had a rhythm now. Morning good mornings, lunch updates, evening calls that sometimes lasted past midnight. It was far from perfect, but it was real. We were figuring it out. And then I got the offer. It came out of nowhere, a call from a digital media company I'd submitted writing to months ago, maybe longer. They loved my essays, especially the ones about Olivia. They wanted me to come in as a contributor, regular features, a potential book deal, a team. But it was in Portland, a completely different coast. I stared at the email for a long time. This wasn't just a gig. This was the kind of opportunity writers dream about. Support, structure, visibility. The kind of thing that doesn't just fall into your inbox. But all I could think about was her. We finally had a plan. 9 months, maybe less. She'd return, and we'd figure out the rest together. But now I had something in front of me that could change everything. I told her that night. She was quiet. "How far is Portland from Boston?" "Too far," I said honestly. 5, maybe 6 hours by plane. She nodded. "Do you want to take it?" "I don't know." "You do." I didn't respond. "Don't say no because of me," she said. "You've worked so hard for this." "But what if I say yes and we lose this?" She looked down. "We might." The words hung between us like smoke. She added, "But if we don't go after things we're meant for, we might end up resenting each other. I don't want that." "Neither do I." I stared at the ceiling. What if we're building something we won't get to finish? She smiled faintly. "Then I hope we leave behind something beautiful anyway." That week was hard. I started drafting a pros/con list like that would make anything clearer. I talked to friends. My mom. Even Natalie reached out. Somehow she'd seen the news on LinkedIn. Her message was kind, surprising. She wished me luck, but none of it helped, because no one else was Olivia. One night, she texted me a picture of her planner. She had circled a weekend 2 months from now. Coming home, the note read, "Home, not visiting. Not your place. Home." I stared at the word until the screen dimmed. The next morning, I emailed the Portland company. I thanked them, told them I was honored, and I said no. It felt like setting fire to a lifeboat, but also like standing where I belonged. I didn't tell Olivia right away. Not because I was hiding it, but because I wanted to be sure I hadn't done it for the wrong reasons. For guilt, for fear. Days passed. I still wrote, still freelanced, still called her every night. And one night, while we were laughing about nothing in particular, she said, "I don't want you to wait for me." I froze. What? I don't mean that in a dramatic way. I just mean live your life. Take the chances. Don't put yourself on hold. I didn't. You didn't what? I got the Portland offer. She sat up straighter. Wait, what? I turned it down. Silence. You did. I wanted to stay. For you. For us. She didn't speak. Liv. Her voice was soft. I don't know what to say. Say you're not mad. I'm not mad. I'm just overwhelmed. I'm sorry. No, don't be sorry. It's just no one's ever chosen me over a dream before. You're not just a person. You're the dream. I heard her inhale sharply. I love you, she said. I love you too. And even though it hurt to pass up that opportunity, I knew I'd done the right thing. Because love isn't always about chasing the biggest thing. Sometimes it's about knowing what you're not willing to lose. The morning she came back wasn't anything cinematic. No airport reunions. No running into each other's arms. Just a knock on my door. Soft, steady, familiar. I opened it and there she was, messy bun, oversized hoodie, a suitcase beside her and a sleepy smile on her lips. Like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Hey, she said, like we hadn't been apart for months. Hey, I breathed back, already pulling her into me. She smelled like the same lavender shampoo in Boston air. Cold fingertips, warm heart. Her arms around me like she'd been counting the days too. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was just right. She stepped inside and looked around like she was remembering it all. The mug she left behind still on the kitchen shelf. The throw blanket on the couch she used to steal. She touched the edge of the counter with a strange kind of reverence. It feels smaller, she said. Or maybe we grew. She laughed quietly. Maybe both. We didn't talk about what came next. Not immediately. We made tea, sat on the couch with our knees touching. She told me about her last few weeks in Boston, the project she finished, the goodbyes, the part of her that still didn't feel real being home again. And then, as she stirred her tea for the fourth time without sipping it, she looked up. I don't want to go back. I blinked. You're not. She shook her head. I deferred another year. Maybe more. I told them I needed time to be here. For myself. For the things that matter. My heart thudded. You matter to me. She smiled. That's what I mean. We didn't make any grand speeches. No one got down on one knee. We just started. Again. In a quiet way that felt like truth. She moved back in slowly. A drawer became two. Her hoodie returned to the back of the chair. My books started sharing a shelf with her paperbacks. We learned to make space, not just an apartment, but in our routines, our fears, our future. One night, I found her standing in the hallway, looking at herself in the mirror. She was wearing the same dress she wore to that wedding, the one where she'd been my backup bride. Still fits, she said with a smile. I walked up behind her, rested my chin on her shoulder. That night, I said, feels like a lifetime ago. She nodded. Back, when we were pretending not to be in love. I kissed her shoulder. We weren't very good at pretending. She turned to face me, suddenly serious. I think part of me knew it then, she whispered. Knew I'd stand beside you in a way that wasn't about filling a seat or being your safety net, but because it was always you. I kissed her like I'd waited my whole life to hear those words. Because maybe I had. Seasons passed. We settled into the kind of life that doesn't make headlines but fills pages in a quiet kind of novel. Mornings with mismatched socks. Evenings arguing about what to watch. Sunday pancakes and shared laundry. Writing. Loving. Building. And one morning, she handed me a letter. I opened it with trembling fingers. It was from the same media company that had offered me a job in Portland. Except this time, it wasn't for a move. It was a remote role, a creative director position. The kind where I get to tell stories about real people, about love, identity, choices. I looked at her. You. She smiled. I may have emailed them, shared your work again, told them they made a mistake letting you go. Olivia, you don't have to take it, she said. But I couldn't sit back and let the world miss out on what you can do. Tears blurred my vision. You believe in me, I said. Always. I took the job, because this time, it didn't mean leaving her behind. It meant moving forward, together. Months later, we were back at that same wedding venue. Different couple, different year, same soft lights, same piano music. Only this time, we weren't pretending. Someone asked if we'd ever get married. She squeezed my hand and said, "We already chose each other. That's the important part." And we didn't need a stage or vows or a fancy cake to prove what we already knew. We were partners. We were home. We were love in all its messy, glorious, quiet complexity. And as I stood there, watching her laugh across the room, I realized something I'd known deep down since the moment I called her my backup bride. There was never a backup plan. It was always her. Always.